Hello all, I'm Sai and in today's video, I'm going to bring to you 10 dark book recommendations. Dark does not mean that these books are horror books or thriller books in any way. All of these books deal with very difficult themes as a whole, and that's why I'm terming this video as a dark book recommendations video. These books will have very heavy content. It may be heavy in any way. I'm just using that as an umbrella term here, and only if you're in a really good mental space, you should go forward and read these books. If at all you're interested. If you're not interested, don't read them. It's completely fine. But there are some people in the world who, like me, do enjoy pieces of dark literature here and there in their reading. I'm just making this video to cater to the needs of such readers. If you're interested in reading any of these books, I'd highly suggest you to go online and look for the content warning as well as trigger warnings that are available for the books, because all of these books have them. I'll also tell about how dark these books can get at times. And I'm saying you all these in advance because I want you to be happy. I want you to be in a good place mentally. I don't want you to go forward and experience a depression just because of these books alone. At the same time, I want you to experience this darkness if you want to, but without letting that darkness affect you in a negative way. Having said all this, without any further ado, let's get into the books right away. The first book that I want to recommend to you is kind of a funny read also, but it's very darkly funny. The book is How to Kill Your Family by Bella Mackie. In this book, we follow our main character, Grace, who's a serial killer, and she has become a serial killer because she is avenging the death of her mother. These people who were in charge of Grace and her mother treated them very, very poorly, and because of this, Grace's mother ended up having a very unpleasant death. Just in order to avenge her mother's death, Grace has equipped herself really, really well. She's extremely intelligent, super fit, do anything that she wants without getting caught at all. She's that good in everything that she does, and she goes forward and just ends up murdering a bunch of people because she's a serial killer. Her story is what we see inside this book, and the dark humor inside this one is of epic proportions. Okay, if you like funny things but of very, very dark context, I'm sure you will enjoy reading this book. This is the only book in this entire list where you'll be able to enjoy the story, at the same time feel bad for yourself because you understand that very dark stuff and shit like this is making you laugh and smile. I remember I was reading this book on the train and people were looking at me weird because of the title of the book. Just to make it clear, this is not a non-fiction book. It's not a manual. It's a fiction story. So if you're into it, definitely go forward and try reading this. This is the lightest of all the reads in this list, despite it being too dark. So yeah, if you're into that kind of stuff, I'm pretty sure that you'll enjoy this one very much. Switching from the first book, next we have a very, very serious book, and I personally think every adult needs to read this book at least once. It will not be a comfortable book at all. It will be extremely uncomfortable. It will make you feel so bad, irritated, frustrated, angry, and so many other such things because this is happening in the world out there. It's a literary fiction book, which means that it just depicts the actual world that we are living in as a fictitious story, and it is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russsel, in which we follow our main character Vanessa when she's like a 15-16-year-old and as a 30-year-old. So what happens when she is 15 or 16 is she gets into this relationship with one of her teachers, and he's the actual villain here. Okay, he makes her feel like he's in love with her, and she also ends up experiencing love for the first time in her life, even though it's not love. She's extremely manipulated and groomed by this teacher, and how it completely changes her life, how it basically destroys her life is the story of this book. It is not an easy read, guys. Okay, there are so many scenes inside this book which will make you feel so uncomfortable. For example, if you're seeing a very serious movie with your parents in the TV, when some scenes just come on the screen, you'll just walk out of the room, right? Or you'll start doing some other stuff just to avoid that. We're all consuming this content together and you just can't, because what's happening on screen is not pleasant. Maybe because of various reasons, but the reason why it happens here is because of sexual assault. The teacher here is basically a predator whom people cannot identify very easily. It will be a very difficult read. Okay, I have a dedicated review for this one. If I have videos for any of these books, all of them will be linked in the description. You can go forward and check them out. Just keep in mind that this will be a very difficult read for you to read, especially if you're a parent, and that too a parent of a female child. But I personally think everyone needs to read this, no matter what their gender is and whom they identify themselves to be, because books like this will only start up conversations in our society which are very uncomfortable to have. But those are the things which can make us move forward and try to cut down people like this existing in this society. I don't mean people like Vanessa, but the people who transform the lives of people like Vanessa into very bad ones. I know it's very, very serious just to hear itself, but trust me, after finishing reading this book, you can't be the same person anymore. Next, we have a book which talks about pain to a very extreme extent, but it has very, very beautiful writing. Okay, you can see that the person who has written this book or the character who's experiencing this story is hurting so bad, but you just lose yourself in the beauty of this writing because it is that good. It's almost poetic, okay, because the author's writing is that good. If I'm not wrong, this is also the debut book of the author, which is completely unbelievable because he has written it so well. The book is On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. I'll just read the synopsis of this book from the back cover because I don't think I'll be able to make a proper justice for this book by by telling about it in my own words because, I just can't express the feeling that I had of this book after I finished reading this. So here it goes. This is a letter from a son to a mother who cannot read. Written when the speaker, Little Dog, is in his late 20s, the letter unearths a family's history that began before he was born. It tells of Vietnam, of the lasting impact of war, and of his family's struggle to forge a new future. And it serves as a doorway into the parts of Little Dog's life his mother has never known. Episodes of bewilderment, fear, and passion, all the while moving closer to an unforgettable revelation. So this is basically just the story of our main character, Little Dog, narrated to his mother via letters, and his mother can't read. It's extremely sad. It'll make you cry at multiple instances because the things that happen to the main characters plus the people surrounding him are things that should not have happened in the first place. So even though the writing is beautiful, you can't escape from experiencing the pain that the character is going through here. And I think it's necessary to read stories like this one in order to understand the impact of war on society and humanity as a whole. Next, we have a magical realism book, which is also a Booker Prize winner from 2022. It is The 7 Moons of Maali Almeida by Shehan Karnatilaka. I read this book last year in 2024 and was extremely good. Here we follow the story of Maali Almeida, who's a photographer and also a journalist, and he has this cache of photos that is hidden somewhere. And the beginning of the story, Maali Almeida is killed, okay? And we see the story narrated to us by Maali Almeida's ghost. The photos that he's taken are from during the time of the Sri Lankan Civil War because the story is happening inside Sri Lanka. And those photos have the capacity to change the entire history of Sri Lanka, especially during the time of the Civil War. So Maali Almeida's ghost has this time of 7 moons or 7 days in order to go forward and tell the location of this cache of photos that he has left somewhere through the dreams in which he can enter the lives of people that he loves. He goes forward and enters the dreams of his mother, a very best friend, and one of his lovers, if I'm not wrong. And the story is extremely well written and narrated. Most of the story is also narrated from second person's point of view, so it feels like you are experiencing the story. Okay, that itself elevates the darkness in the story to another level. I read this book last year only, so I have so many fragments of memories from this book just pasted together in my mind, and I want to reread this so badly. I know that it is hard, I know that it is extremely dark, but the author's writing is so good that you will be able to experience the story exactly as the author wants you to, because he uses second person's point of view. That is, the story is narrated like this is happening to you, you are going to this place, you are with this person is treating you like this. The narration is like that. Okay, so it feels like when you're reading the book, the story is happening to you even though it's not. So the amount of darkness and pain that you'll experience, that the main character has experienced in his life through the story, will be quite huge. And as a story itself, it is very remarkable. Next, we have a fantasy trilogy, and I'm recommending just the first book to you guys. After you finish reading the first book, you will want to read the second and third books, obviously, because it is that well written. It is The Poppy Ward by R.S. Vuong. It's quite grimdark fantasy, okay? Here we follow our main character, Rin, and she is living in this very small village in a fictitious world that is inspired from Chinese history. And during the time when China and Japan were in war against each other, Rin gets this chance to take this test called the Keju, and after she clears the Keju and tops her particular region of the world, she gets to be admitted in this very prestigious, huge, privileged school called Synagogue. And after being educated there, she will become one of the most highest ranked government officials ever. What all happens in Rin's life after she gets into Synagogue and how she's going to experience the world after book 1 is narrated in this series 2-3. And trust me, this is definitely a series which does not shy away from showing the brutality of war as such. Okay, especially in book 1, there are like 2 chapters. I don't remember the numbers of the chapters exactly, but when you read those 2 chapters, you will want some help. Okay, you will want to talk with someone, you will want to just at least go online and talk with people who have read the book already, because the author talks about extreme war crimes that have happened in real life in China during that war. And I was totally dumbstruck after I finished reading this book, because this is the first book by the author. Her writing is world class. The story that she has narrated is incomparably amazing, and the darkness that it carries is very difficult to just express with words, yet she has done it brilliantly well. Again, has so many trigger warnings, has so many content warnings. Go forward and look them up online and then read the series, because it literally has everything that I can think of. So yeah, it will be a hard read, but the series is completely worth all that hard work. Next, we have an Indian fantasy book. It's also an urban fantasy. So if you are not that much into high fantasy books, you can definitely go forward and read this. It's an adult book, so only if you are 18 and above, you can read this book. Otherwise, please don't, because it has quite explicit content, at the same time quite dark content also, which is The Yogi Witch by Zorian Cross. In this book, we follow our main character, Jay Gill, who's a yogi by day and he's a witch by night. He's also the first male witch to be born in his family after a very, very long time. He's biracial. His father is Punjabi and his mother is white. And we see both aspects of his culture experienced by him in his life. He's brought up by his grandmother and two aunts who are all white, but they have settled in India. They were born, brought up in India, and they are basically just Indians, except for their skin being white. Now, Jay has learned so much only from his grandmother and his aunts, and how he puts that all into use in his adult life is the plot that we see here. And his story is narrated to us in the past and present when he was like in his teens and when he is now an adult like 19 or 20 by switching in between the past and present continuously. We don't understand why it is happening, but after a point in the plot, we get to understand that both of these things had to coincide here. That's why the author was narrating it in such a way. It's very well written. It's also a debut book of the author. Does not feel like a debut book at all because the writing is very good. It also has very good queer representation, and the dark thing about this book is that it dives a lot into the occult practices that are known in our country, and some rituals that the author shows here are quite trim that to read. Okay, I was feeling very uncomfortable while reading them, and I was able to understand that that's what the author was going for while he wrote such scenes. So if you want to experience something that is very, very different, quite dark, at the same time doesn't like just drive you crazy, you can definitely try reading The Yogi Witch by Zorian Cross. Next we have the most difficult book that I've read of all time. I'm also recommending this book only if you want to read this book very badly. Take as much time as you want, read it only during the summertime, read it only during the daytime. If you're even feeling like a little bit sad or down mentally, don't read this book. I'd say just don't read this book at all. Unless and until you really want to experience the story and want to know what it's about. It's completely okay to not want to know. It's completely okay to not want to read this book because it is not a book for everyone. I'm glad that I read this because it was difficult for me. Okay, it was very difficult for me, just like it was for any other person in the world who has read the book. But it's one story which I think I needed to know, and it is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I read this book last year and it was the best book that I read in 2024. I know there are many people who love this book as well as hate this book, but this book will cause you so much pain while you read it because it's basically the life story of our main character Jude here. He's physically challenged because of some things that happened in his life, and his life has just been torture and pain ever since childhood until his story ends. It's a very depressing book, very, very sad book, yet it needs to be told with this much detail, with so many pages, because there are many, many people living in the world that Jude has lived. There are people experiencing what Jude experienced even now as I am filming this video and as you are watching this. It's difficult to digest the fact that this is happening in the world. It is difficult to just process the fact that humans can be so vile creatures, and even despite that, a person can use their strength to change the world in the smallest ways that they can. And it also shows us that everyone's life is very, very different and no one has the right or capacity to judge another person's life for what they end up doing. It's an extremely painful book. It has literally all the content warnings. Don't read this book if you have not heard about it or don't want to read it. But if you want to read it, I'd suggest you to make yourself very well equipped, because this story can shatter people, it can shatter hearts, it can definitely make you feel so sad and broken. Okay, so only if you really need to read it, feel like you need to read it. Otherwise, you just don't. So yeah, with all these caveats, I want to recommend A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. Next, we have a grimdark fantasy series again, and this is basically my most favorite grimdark fantasy series. Again, it's not easy to read. It has so much of content warnings, trigger warnings, but it's also extremely funny in an extremely dark way. It is The Nevernight Chronicle by J. Kristoff. The first book is this one, Nevernight. The second one is God's Grave, and the third and final book is Act On. I love all the three books. The second book is my most favorite inside the series. But for me, the best thing about the series is this main character, Mia Corderi. We follow her, Mia, as a teenager in the beginning of the book, and she goes and trains in this school for assassins, and she becomes one of the world-class assassins here, and she just goes forward and wants to avenge the killers of her family. She is left orphan right now because her family was killed, and she wants to just go forward and take revenge for what she has been through and how her life has been transformed because of those killers. One thing I want to tell you guys is that the point about the series is no one at all inside this world is good. Everyone is bad, everyone is cruel, everyone has their own personal intentions behind everything that they do. Even the romance that the author shows here is extremely problematic and super dark. There's so much betrayal, there's so much heartbreak, there's so much violence, there's so much gore. Every kind of sadness and darkness in the world is there inside the series. But the narrator that the author chooses to have for this book, in the way in which he narrates the book, makes the story very easily flowing. Okay, even though there is so much darkness and bad things happening inside the series, I can say that it's quite easier to read compared to any of the other dark books that I've recommended today. I think after How to Kill Your Family, Nevernight Chronicle is comparatively the easiest to read inside this list. The world building in this one is excellent. The magic that the author uses is nice. There is also like animal companions inside the series who just make it it's so much adorable. I don't know how he wrote this, but he has done a really good job of finishing the series well. And again, I want to reread the series at some point. Next, we have the second darkest book that I've read so far. A Little Life is the darkest and saddest book that I've read by far in my life. And this one comes very close to that. Okay. The intention of the book itself is to make it as much dark as possible. It comes even in the title of the book itself, which is Dark Places by Gillian. Gillian is the author of Gone Girl, which is one of the most popular books ever. For me personally, Dark Places is even darker than Gone Girl. If you've read Gone Girl, you know how amazingly dark and great that book is. This book is even more dark than that. It's not as great as Gone Girl, but it is extremely dark. Here we follow our main character, Libby Day. And the thing about Libby is that when she was a very small child, her brother ended up killing his mother and another sibling that Libby had. And because of it, he went to prison. And I think 20 years in the future, after he gets released from prison, Libby as well as her brother from prison, Ben, meet each other. And what has happened in the past actually is that Libby did not know whether her brother ended up killing their mother or not, but because of some things that happened, she has proven to be the evidence that sent Ben into prison. Now Libby is having doubts of whether what she did in the past was correct or not, and because of the evidence that she gave, the testament that she gave, her brother ended up spending nearly 2 decades of his life in prison. When such a question arises in her mind, the past needs to be excavated. All the things that happened during that day of the killing needs to be brought back into light. And Libby herself has not had a proper life in these 20 years. She has been picked up by her mother's sister and brought up by her for a few days, 2 years. And after that, she's been brought up in various foster homes. And finally, now she's an adult living a very, very bad life, to put it in simple words. It's an extremely dark book. It will bring down your mood rapidly down. Don't read this during the winter time. I'll just say that out loud because I read it during the winter time, I think in September, October, and it effed up my brain so bad. Still, I like the experience of reading this book because of the amount of darkness that the author explored inside this book. Even towards the ending of the book, I got a bit frightened and scared because it got that scary and that dark. So yeah, if you're into that kind of stuff, you will definitely enjoy Dark Places by Gillian. The last book that I'm recommending to you today is a historical fiction book, and I'm not going to talk much about this book. I'll just tell you who's the main character of it and how it's narrated, and I'll just read the synopsis or blurb from the back cover of the book. Trust me, you cannot be disappointed by this book, okay? And it is The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. And in this book, we follow our main character, Liesel, who's a book thief, and her life story as well as the life story of some other people during the Second World War is narrated to us by none other than Death itself. So Death is the narrator of the story, and how Death narrates it to us is the path that the author has taken. I'll read the synopsis, which is very vague from the back cover to you. This is the tale of the book thief, as narrated by Death. And when Death tells a story, you really have to listen. It's just a small story really about, amongst other things, a girl, an accordionist, some fanatical Germans, a Jewish fist fighter, and quite a lot of thievery. Trust me, this is one book which will make you feel sad. At the same time, good for some reason because the story is narrated by Death. It has emotions, at the same time the quite blank at times, but as a whole the story is prolifically well written. I know that many people already do love The Book Thief, and it's been more than 6 to 7 years since I read this for the first time. I want to go back and reread this again. We can see it's a huge book, but it is not as dark as the other books that we've seen so far. This is quite handleable. Even if you're a beginner, you can go forward and read The Book Thief because it is quite more digestible compared to the other books and quite less dark also compared to them. So yeah, that's why I'm recommending this at last inside this list. So yes guys, those are all the 10 dark books that I wanted to recommend to you today. I hope you liked the recommendations, and if you have read any of these books, please do let me know your opinions of them in the comments below because I'd like to discuss them with you guys. And if you have any other such recommendations that you would like me to pick up, tell me that also down in the comments because I like to get book recommendations from you always. And if you did find this video useful and enjoyable, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. If you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.